I've been practicing for over 12 years. I was born and raised in Missoula. This is where I want to practice, this is my community, and I want to be there to help the people who I grew up with.
I began my legal career in the United States Marine Corps. And I moved to Missoula, Montana and began practicing, and I just couldn't imagine a better place to live. What inspired me to become an attorney is I really have a passion for people, especially helping people. What we do here at Holloway and Hulling is we represent people that are in a very difficult time of their life, and we're here to make sure that their rights are protected and they get what they deserve.
We even got your old throwback hat on. Ryan Tootell joining us here. Big Sky Breakdown, as well as the Skyline Sports YouTube channel. Appreciate you for being here, man. I love the throwback ESPN hat, looking good.
Yeah, I'm repping everything. I got ESPN up here, and I got the mighty PLU Lutz down low. So I'm a nice repping sandwich right here with my face.
I heard that that PLU lacrosse has really taken a turn. I heard they're down recently.
Been down for a little bit. It's been, maybe a decade of down now, maybe more. So it was a very different landscape, both at school and just in lacrosse in general, in my day when I was playing for the Mighty Lutz. And no question, the high point of sports in my life, not just in terms of the playing of it, but just the experience of it. But yeah, it's it's a low level club level B league team now, and the fact that it actually still is going is a little bit of a minor miracle. But I wish my best to the boys back there in the Loot Dome. But there's going to need to be an influx of resources, both human and otherwise, to try and generate any type of positive momentum in that deal right now.
Well, several things to get to, including the drama that's going on. It's been quite a saga with the sort of abrupt and surprising entrance of Clifton McDowell into the transfer portal, and then a big time "what the hell is going on" moment when he's deciding that he's going to leave the national runner-ups and the Grizz to go to Temple of all places.
Right.
And then he lasts there for about 5 total spring practices, and he's back in the portal. And now the rumor is that he's trying to get his way back onto the UM team. In the meantime, he's putting, sort of cryptic tweet emojis of his tweets from last year when he first committed to the Grizz. I've talked about this quite a bit on Nuanez now already. What do you think of this entire saga, both from the Grizz side of this thing, but also it just seems like this young man's having a hard time solidifying his decision making.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems that way. You go to a place, Montana was his second or third school, and then Temple, another one on the list after that. So moving around,
Actually, even fourth, because he was at Louisiana, then he was at junior college, then he was at Central Arkansas, then he committed to Southern, decommitted from Southern, came to Montana. So Temple was school number 5.
So and that's a lot of schools, but it frankly is not that abnormal right now for guys to go every year to a new place and find a new situation and what's going on. It's also not abnormal for guys to stay at a place for an extended period of time. What would be a little out of the norm is leaving for a place like Temple and in a month or 2 months turning around and trying to return to the place that you had just left in. And particularly when that place is run by Bobby Houck, who I have no idea the circumstances or the can I say the emotion or the note by which Clifton McDowell left the team. If it was on good terms and it was like, hey, I'm thank you, but I'm going to try this new thing out, or if it was like, writings on the wall because we got, Key Eliayat in the wings potentially. So now I'm just going to go. Was it, an institutional thing? Was it a city thing? Was it a life thing or whatever? But also this is what Clifton McDowell does. He just goes. So whether or not he's coming back, I guess, is anybody's guess. And whether or not he's even welcome back is anybody's guess. Right. So it is what it is. But, certainly from an athletic and positional standpoint, he can play for the University of Montana. I mean, he took them. He was on a team that went to a national championship, and he was the quarterback of that team, and that ain't nothing. And I thought at times he played very high level football for the Grizzlies as quarterback, and then I thought at times he was okay. I don't know that he was ever really bad. I think probably about the least effective he was actually in the national championship game, but of course that may not be all on him either, right at that point. So, yeah, it's who's going to be the quarterback for the Montana Grizzlies when Bobby Hauck is the head coach is always an open question, and one on which much ink is spilt.
This is the part that's so funny. So let's just operate under the assumption that Clifton McDowell is in fact going to somehow make his way back onto the Grizz roster. That's what seems like is going to happen right now.
Yeah.
If and when that happens, he's almost certainly going to spend the entire spring session toiling with the fours and throwing to a bunch of walk-ons who don't even have names on the back of their jerseys. And then he's probably going to start the fall camp down there with the threes or the fours. And it's going to take him a really long time to ever work his way back in. But the irony of the situation is, because of the way that Bobby Hauck specifically wants to win, McDowell is like his perfect quarterback. And it's because he isn't this guy that's going to go take the game by storm. He's just going to do what you tell him. He's going to make enough plays. If you want to just run him on QB power 18 times, he can do it. If it's just about making 8 third down throws in the scope of a game and that's it, and hitting one long bomb, he can do that. And he also doesn't have to steal the spotlight from anybody else. So it's funny because there's a scenario in which Clifton McDowell is not the starter until October again. And yet then he still is the starter somehow down the stretch, because that's what this Grizz team actually is. Now, that said, they could have a completely different identity this year. Who knows if they're going to be as good or not on defense as they have been the last couple of years. They have all these offensive playmakers. Maybe Ayat or Logan Fife, the transfer from Fresno State, or Sam Vidlak has a reemergence. I don't know. They have 3 guys that almost certainly are better traditional style quarterbacks than McDowell on the roster. But as we saw last year, that didn't matter. I mean, Sam Vidlak and Ayat are both better traditional style quarterbacks. They were on the roster last year. It was still McDowell's show pretty much as soon as he took the starting job over in October. So it's just ironic that they're going to try to make McDowell take his lumps as much as they possibly can, yet there might just still be a scenario where the whole thing just plays out exactly as it did a year ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, they tried to give Vidlak run, and it was just not in the cards. And, anybody could see when McDowell rolled out there that he was going to be a better option for this team. And, guys make strides in the offseason and all that kind of thing, but it would be hard pressed to put Vidlak ahead of McDowell on the depth chart. The other 2 guys, though, who knows? I mean, when you talk about Fife and transferring in from a very well-known school and guys who played really high-end quarterback, at Fresno State. What does he have to offer? Why is he transferring? What's the story there? How good is he? And does his skill set map onto what Montana wants to do? And then obviously Ayat, who I think is the guy that is in most Grizz fans' minds the next the next dude, and being a legacy guy, but also in what he showed in very limited action, but action nonetheless, where you go, okay, like, yep, that looks like an Ayat out there playing football. I think that little taste gets Grizz fans pretty darn excited, and I think you're going to have a lot of Montana fans clamoring for Eli Ayat to get real opportunity, if not just be the guy to be the quarterback of this team.
Well, it's funny because you can point to so many different examples in the contemporary era right now in which premier FCS programs went with young guys at quarterback and had it work out really, really well. Cam Miller at North Dakota State. He was a starter as a freshman. He started all the way through his career. He was great. Tommy Mellott, starter as a freshman. Mark Brodowski at South Dakota State, starter as a freshman. Eric Berry at Eastern Washington, starter as a sophomore. So if we were doing this under conventional ways of operating, you'd say, okay, well, the Grizz should, they have this guy that is obviously very talented. They should just let him roll and take their lumps if he makes mistakes and see how good they can get him. But we also know that that's just never been the way that Bobby Hauck has operated either. So how do we sort of weigh this? Because to me, I thought Sean Rainey said this really well on Nuanez Now the other day. He said, if McDowell becomes the guy again, it probably actually elevates the floor of the Grizz football team, but also shrinks the ceiling. Whereas, like, if any of the other guys could have a way lower floor, but specifically Ayat could probably have a way higher ceiling as well. How do we sort of reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, thought, and I understand the logic there, and it might be true. I just think guys know when you're in practice every day, and especially like just the way that guys are when it comes to being, we talk about on the outside leadership, but just relationally, and how they are, the type of dude they are in the locker room and all that kind of stuff. Guys know who they want to have be the quarterback and who they think should be the quarterback and who they think gives them the best chance to win, and sometimes there's a true competition where guys do two things very differently, but are, maybe give you that equal opportunity, roughly speaking, on the field at winning. But I think that, coaches are pretty hard pressed to, if they think that a guy's going to give them the best chance to win, it's going to be a rare situation in which that guy isn't on the field. And that said,
the interpretation of what is the best chance to win, though, that's where this gets so interesting, because Bobby Hauck's definition of the best chance to win is the guy that can get you into the best field position over and over again, so you can use your punter and your punt coverage teams and your punt return teams and all that stuff.
Right.
That's Clifton McDowell. What did he throw last year? 2 picks? I mean, he doesn't throw any picks. And if he can just get you, okay, we only got 2 yards each play until we punt it. Well, we punted it, and they're pinned down here, and now we get a chance to have a half the field, and Bergen can do a sideline return. That's how Bobby interprets the best chance to win.
Here's the thing, though, and I don't think a lot of people think of this way, but I do at this point. When it comes to the quarterback, I think the NFL is way more of a developmental league than college football. And the reason I say that is because you can have guys that are incredibly talented in the right system, and they can show up out of spring ball and roll, and they're just that good. And there's so much turnover in college football, both because of obviously graduation, but also transfer portal and stuff. You got brand new teams every single year. So this idea of like just coming up in the system. And by the way, if anybody was going to do it, it would probably be Montana, right? Like having this system over time at an FCS level where there is still going to be plenty of transferring done, but you can think that there's probably going to be a core of guys that are just going to show up as freshmen and be there as seniors all the way through, which Montana had last year, by the way, and made it a run all the way to Frisco as a result of that. But in general, there is so much turnover in college football that you just need a guy right now this year who can play with this team in this system and just go ball out. And you don't have to you learn and get better as you go, but it's not this multi-year process, where you're paying your dues as quarterback or whatever. And then, all of a sudden you learn how to throw the 10-yard out in your sophomore year or whatever, all that kind of stuff. It's so much more about system and fit in a given season and at a given place than it's ever been before. And so then the answer to the question that we're asking becomes sort of unknowable. It's just total speculation about what happens when you have some new coaches coming in the coaching staff, when you've got a bunch of dudes graduating. Now you got a quarterback that left, maybe he's coming back. Now you got a freshman, who got a little bit of play last year and looks really talented, but can he do the things that you want right here and right now? That said, if he is a guy who's going to be here for 4 years, play him.
Right.
That's what I think. right? Because you want that highest of high ceilings, especially at quarterback. I mean, it is the way to be the best that you can be, is to have the best quarterback. And I've said this forever in college football. There's no draft. There's no uh 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 salary cap. You can get, I mean, quote unquote, all the best players at every position and just be better than everybody else.
Right.
Right. And I guess the point is, get the best player that you can at every position and roll them out there as best you can. And that, if that includes a guy who is, you know, a very good but not great player as a freshman, but who's going to be here in 3 years from now, get him out there. That's my thinking.
What is a jewelry design center?
JDC is a family-owned business with deep roots in Montana. Why Montana? Because this community made us family, made us artisans, made us believe in love, made us hometown heroes. Because this community made us shine. Why Montana? Because Montana is home.
Ryan Tootell here on the Big Sky Breakdown. Okay, a couple other things. Let's talk about the other side of the Continental Divide. First, we'll stay on football for just a minute. Montana State has new offensive coordinator, and they have now a specific quarterbacks coach as well. Two different guys. Tyler Walker, the former tight ends coach, will be the new OC, and then Chuckie Keaton, former outstanding quarterback at Utah State, he's coming in to coach quarterbacks because Walker will keep working with the tight ends while also being the offensive play caller. This is pertinent because Tommy Mellott all of a sudden now is in his last year as a starting quarterback. I think that a lot of people that watch these with us, they either completely worship at the shrine of Tommy Mellott and think he's the man, or they hate the Cats and they think Tommy Mellott sucks. And I think that neither of those things are true. I think that Tommy Mellott is a very good college football player who's a very fine quarterback, but a really, really great athlete playing quarterback. I think that he's a lot better at throwing the football than a lot of Grizz fans give him credit for. But where are we at with Tommy Mellott finding his full potential during his senior year? Is this like a hurtful thing, a helpful thing? How much do you think just having new sort of voices in the room and new voices in his mentorship as he enters his final year at Montana State?
Yeah, it's always a question of like, when is there too many cooks in the kitchen? Golfers go through this all the time, right? Like, you have a swing coach and you work with this person over and over, and eventually, like, it just kind of gets a little bit stale, and you just need a new voice, if nothing else, to give you a couple new little pointers, a couple new, lessons or routines, things to work on. But then at some point, these guys get so worked around the axle about, their swing angle or whatever. And it's like, hey, maybe I don't need a coach at all. Maybe I just need to go out there and just hit golf balls. You know what I mean? And it's not actually that hard. I think only Tommy Mellott and Coach Vegan, presumably know the answer. And they, Vegan thought, we need a quarterback coach in here to work specifically to work with Mellott and try and improve him. I think that what Tommy Mellott came in and did his freshman year set the bar very, very high, and the level of excitement and how good that team was, and him kind of being the guy, obviously in the playoff run, and then, coming in that next year, was he played great. And I don't know that a lot of people expected it. But how much has he improved over the course of his time at Montana State? I think some, but I think you still see like some of the weaknesses are still the weaknesses for Tommy Mellott. And maybe that's a little bit system stuff, and that's a little bit of the way that they're asking him to play the position. And by the way, the things he does well, he does at a very high level.
Yeah.
So,
the thing that's really gotten away from them is that they use him so much as a designated runner in the run game. That's fine. Of course. I mean, he's one of the best athletes in the country.
Right.
But then as they continue to have their passing game evolve, when he drops back, his instinct is still to run. So now you're calling 12 run plays a game for him. And also he's running another 10 times because that's what he does when he drops back. This is what Marty Morgan says. He says, hey, get the design runs out of there for him. because he's going to run 15 times if you just pass the ball all the time. So, let your running backs have all the design stuff, do a little reads option stuff with him, but mostly let him be the one making the decision when he's going to run.
It's such an a weird thing to take a guy like Tommy Mellott and you know what they're best at and you're going to accentuate those skills, but then you also need to play the position in some sense. And it's like, how do you develop them to do that and let them be great at what they're naturally great at, and I think this is obviously, a big year, senior year for Tommy Mellott, and he's won a lot of awards, and there's no reason to think that he's going to be anything other than very good. But can he take that next step? And I think it is as a passer. Like you said, I mean, he's not as bad a passer, thrower of the football, as a lot of people might think that he is, but he also isn't elite. Like it's not his number one or two, skill set as a quarterback that he's got. And yet I think that's something that Montana State needs to have. Like they've been such an elite, best running team in the country these last several years, taking on the whole. That's what they do. That's what they want to do. You got to splice in the threat of the pass, and not just attempts down the field that go for incompletions, like real efficacy in the pass game where you can get 150 yards through the air on, 10 of 17 on, just mid-level stuff that forces a little bit of honesty out of the defense and allows you to manipulate your play calling a little bit. I think that is what Montana State needs to have, and they need Tommy Mellott to be able to deliver the football to do that.
Legal tip of the day. If you have contact with law enforcement, everything you say can be used against you. Be very polite, respect the badge, and simply say, please let me call my attorney, Dwight Schulte.
Only got a couple minutes left because I got to do a radio show, but I want to get your thoughts. The precarious situation that Washington State finds itself in without having the Pac-12, and how much maybe this last couple weeks has been a revelation in the challenges that maybe lie on the horizon for Washington State. First, Pat Chun, the athletic director, goes from Wazzu to Washington. So they won't have to see each other that much because they're not in the same conference anymore, but that's pretty awkward going from the Cougs to the Huskies. And then you have the basketball opening. Kyle Smith jumps ship to go to Stanford. They go after Matt Logie at Montana State. They go after Eric Henderson at South Dakota State. Both say thanks, but no thanks, even though it would have been a pretty sizable raise. And then they end up hiring David Riley from Eastern Washington, who, by the way, is also jumping off of a ship that has maybe murky waters ahead when it comes to Eastern Washington's athletic department. So where are we at with just Wazzu and just their sort of state of existence in Division I sports right now? And how much do you think these coaches saying thanks but no thanks is indicative of that?
Well, I think it's entirely indicative of that. I think the only reason that, Coach Logie says no to Washington State is because you are a beast of no nation, right? Like you've got a school, but you've got no conference, and we don't know what you're even going to be here. And obviously we can include Oregon State in this. The weird thing is, I think that actually what happens here is all going to get worked out in court. Like,
right.
This is all legal issue stuff. The conferences, the Pac-12, I don't quote me on this, but I think it's something around the figure of about $30 million is what a school would have to pay the conference to leave the conference. That's part of the insurance of, hey, you can't just jump ship. But when 10 of 12 schools all leave, on one hand, you go, well, so what, are we getting $300 million going to two schools? But then the schools themselves are saying, well, it's not like we left the Pac-12. There is no Pac-12, so we shouldn't have to pay this. And I have no idea what how the lawyers and judges are going to work this stuff out. And that's one of, I'm sure, hundreds of items of things that are all going to have some sort of financial implication and also therefore future implication for these schools. But no one knows where the floor is right now, especially for Washington State and Oregon State. Like, no one knows what direction is up and no one knows what direction is down. There's no grounding, there's no footing. You're just gonna try and keep playing sports and find, people to schedule against and go out there and do it. I don't even know how I don't know how scholarships are going to work. I don't know any of this stuff. So I think that this is, a little bit of an act of, I'll actually take the unknown future rather than the known present, even with a significant bump in pay to go coach at one of these two schools right now, because there's just too much that you can't possibly know what's going to happen. I mean, there's no guarantee that Washington State and Oregon State are playing football and basketball in 2 years from right now, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that I expect that, but it wouldn't shock me if in 2025 they go, you know what, we got to take a year off of basketball because we have to figure out what we're doing and getting back into a conference somewhere or something. Now that may well not happen, but I'm just saying, like, how do we know that wouldn't be a possibility? You know what I mean? If they can't find another conference to get into or somehow to revamp the pack into, a pack 8 at least. I think you need to have at least 6 other schools in there to make it a conference where you could play 7 other teams and get an actual conference schedule out of it, right? Where are those schools coming from and why would they want to? And what does that look like? And what would their national specter be? All this is totally unprecedented and totally unknowable. And, maybe the presidents and now, not having an athletic and where's the money coming from? Where, like the big part of being a conference is the financial stability that you were supposed to have, which obviously didn't happen under Larry Scott. And that's a big reason we don't have a Pac-12 anymore. In fact, it's probably the central reason. So thanks for nothing to him. But, these schools, man, they're in an incredibly tough spot and not really of their own making. It's just the shifting landscape shook and everybody had a chair except for the Beavers and the Cougs, man, and so then I don't know what the answers are.
To be continued. We will get some prognostications because I got a couple of theoretical conference realignments for you. But for now, I got to go. But he'll be joining us weekly for the next couple weeks at least as we finish up our spring football coverage as well as all things just Big Sky Conference sports, presented in part by Holloway and Hulling Law. Appreciate them for the continued support of Skyline Sports. Thanks for being here, Gus.
Love it, buddy. Thanks for having me. Talk to you next week.
Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.